In the stillness of a wilderness night, the heavens seem close, the stars like scattered diamonds illuminating a vast, infinite expanse. The air, crisp and cool, carries a profound silence that feels alive, a silence that speaks of eternity and whispers the mysteries of the Creator. In this sacred stillness, amidst the rugged terrain and solitude, a moment of divine encounter is unfolding, one that will change the course of history and redefine the meaning of faith. This is the backdrop where the timeless words, "I will be with you," first resonate, cutting through the heavy shadows of Moses' life and igniting a fire within his weary soul. For Moses, the wilderness was more than a physical location, it was a reflection of his own heart, desolate, unsure, burdened by the weight of past failures and present fears. He was a man shaped by contradictions, born into slavery but raised in royalty, guilty of murder yet chosen for a holy mission. Beneath the stars, surrounded by the stillness, Moses likely felt the ache of inadequacy and the restless question, "Why me?" But then came the voice, gentle yet powerful, piercing through the night, through his fears, through his doubts, "I will be with you." Close your eyes and step into this scene. Imagine yourself as Moses. The trials of your life may feel heavy, the path ahead unclear. Yet, as you stand in your own wilderness, let these words echo in your heart. "I will be with you." They are more than a promise, they are a lifeline, a declaration of divine presence that remains steadfast, unyielding, and unfailing even in your darkest hour. You are not alone. The one who shaped the stars is with you, and he calls you forward with unwavering love. The invitation to take off your shoes is more than a simple gesture, it is a profound call to recognize the sacredness of the moment and the presence of the divine. In the ancient world, removing one's shoes symbolized humility, reverence, and an acknowledgement of holy ground, a space where heaven touches earth. For Moses, it marked the beginning of transformation, a release of his burdens and fears into the hands of the one who called him. For us, it is an invitation to do the same, to pause, to let go, and to stand vulnerable and unencumbered before God. Life, like Moses' journey, often feels like a labyrinth of unexpected twists and turns, moments of triumph interwoven with seasons of struggle. The weight of daily worries, the regrets of yesterday, and the uncertainties of tomorrow can leave us feeling overwhelmed. Yet, in the midst of this unpredictability, there is always an opportunity to step back, to lay down our burdens, and to trust in the steadfast love of God, who sees beyond our chaos and meets us in our brokenness. As night falls and the world quiets, allow yourself to embrace the sacredness of stillness. Take a slow, deep breath. Feel the weight of your worries dissolve as you exhale. Inhale peace, the peace that surpasses understanding. Let your breathing become a gentle prayer, a rhythmic acknowledgement of God's nearness, His unshakable presence surrounding you like a warm embrace. In this moment, know that your messiness, your struggles, and even your doubts cannot separate you from the love of the one who calls you beloved. Step onto holy ground, not with fear but with confidence, knowing that here, in this sacred space, you are fully known and deeply loved. Moses' life was a tapestry woven with contradictions, a journey of unexpected twists that seemed, at first glance, far from heroic. Born into a world that sought his destruction, he was cast into the waters of the Nile as a vulnerable infant, destined to float into an uncertain future. Yet, from this peril, God orchestrated his deliverance, drawing him out of danger and placing him in Pharaoh's court. A Hebrew raised as an Egyptian prince, Moses lived in the tension of two identities, belonging fully to neither. Later, he became a fugitive, a man fleeing the consequences of his anger and guilt, seeking refuge in the wilderness where he believed his story might quietly end. But God had other plans. The name Moses, drawn out of the water, speaks to the heart of God's transformative power. It is a reminder that no matter how chaotic or broken the circumstances of your life may seem, God is able to redeem them, to draw you out of the depths and place your feet on solid ground. His calling of Moses, despite the man's failures and flaws, is a testament to the divine ability to turn even the most turbulent beginnings into a narrative of hope and purpose. Reflect on your own journey. Where have you felt cast into the waters, overwhelmed by circumstances beyond your control? Perhaps you've encountered moments when the current of life pulled too strongly. or when you felt lost, tangled in the reeds of doubt, fear, or failure. Yet, just as God reached into the Nile to draw Moses into safety, he reaches into your chaos with a steady hand. He sees your potential, not through the lens of your past, but through the promise of what he can do in and through you. Take heart. Your struggles are not the end of your story. They are the soil in which redemption takes root, the waters through which purpose emerges. Just as Moses' life was marked by God's faithfulness, your life, too, is a canvas for divine transformation, a story of being drawn out into grace, healing, and the fulfillment of a greater plan. This sacred act of removing one's shoes transcends mere tradition. It is an invitation to lay down the layers we wear to protect ourselves, the defenses, the facades, the accumulated dust of the journey, and to step unshielded into the presence of the holy. For Moses, it was the first step into his calling, a moment of raw honesty before God, where his past failures and future fears could no longer mask the truth of who he was, chosen, loved, and purposed by the Creator. For us, this gesture may look different. It might mean pausing in the rush of life to truly acknowledge God's presence. It could mean surrendering the burdens we clutch so tightly, the worries we believe are ours alone to bear. It is in these moments, when we are vulnerable and open, that we discover the profound truth Moses learned at the burning bush: God's presence transforms ordinary ground into holy ground. And his nearness turns fear into faith. Think of the holy ground you stand on now, not a distant mountain but the very place where your feet rest. It could be the quiet corner of your room, the softness of your bed as you prepare for rest, or the space where you've poured out your tears. These are sacred spaces because God is with you in them. His presence does not depend on the grandeur of a location but on the openness of your heart to meet him there. As the evening deepens and the noise of the world fades, let the stillness invite you to remove the shoes of your burdens. Release the need to control, the guilt of yesterday, and the worries of tomorrow. Inhale deeply, filling your soul with the peace that comes from knowing you are seen and loved by the one who created you. Exhale, letting go of the need to have all the answers, trusting instead in the one who walks with you. This is your holy ground. Here, you are invited to rest in God's unshakable presence, knowing that his love for you is not diminished by your struggles but magnified by his grace. Stand confidently in this sacred space, knowing that you are cherished, called, and never alone. Moses' encounter with the burning bush was not an isolated event, it was the culmination of years of preparation in the wilderness, even though Moses himself was unaware of it. Every moment of doubt, every step through the desert, every humble task of tending sheep had been shaping him for this divine appointment. When God called Moses, it wasn't because he was perfect or prepared, it was because he was willing. Even in his reluctance to listen, Moses' protests echo the cries of many of our own hearts: who am I to do this? I am not enough. I am slow of speech, inadequate, afraid. These words reflect the universal human struggle with self-doubt, the fear that we are too broken or too small to make a difference. But God's response to Moses is the same response he gives to us: I will be with you. It is not about our qualifications but his presence. The great I Am transforms our insufficiency into the very tool he uses to accomplish his purposes. Where, in your life, is God inviting you to step out in faith? Perhaps it's a difficult conversation you've been avoiding, a new opportunity that feels overwhelming, or a dream buried beneath years of doubt and fear. Maybe you've been called to extend forgiveness, to begin anew, or to trust him in a season of uncertainty. Whatever it is, you are not alone. God does not call you to walk the path ahead in your strength but in his. When Moses stood before Pharaoh, he carried the staff of a shepherd but wielded the authority of God. The same is true for you. What you bring may seem small, your gifts, your courage, your willingness, but when partnered with God's presence, they become instruments of liberation, transformation, and grace. Step forward with faith, not because you are fearless, but because the great I Am goes before you, walks beside you, and dwells within you. Let his promise, I will be with you, steady your steps and embolden your heart. You are not alone, and with him, nothing is impossible. The story of Moses, with its powerful imagery of being drawn out of the waters, resonates deeply with the journey of faith each of us undertakes. The Nile, initially a symbol of death and despair, became the means through which Moses was saved and set apart for God's purpose. This transformation of the waters mirrors the spiritual rebirth offered to us through the waters of baptism, a sacred transition from fear to faith, from bondage to freedom, and from despair to hope. Consider the waters in your life, the moments that feel overwhelming, chaotic, or threatening to sweep you away. These could be the struggles of broken relationships, the weight of past mistakes, or the relentless current of self-doubt. Just as God reached into the Nile to deliver Moses, He reaches into your stormy waters to draw you out, to set your feet on solid ground, and to call you into a greater story. Picture the waters not as a force of destruction but as a cleansing current. Close your eyes and imagine the fears that grip your heart being swept away, carried far from you. Picture your regrets dissolving in the flow, their power over you fading as God's grace replaces them with peace. Feel the doubts that hold you back loosen the grip as you surrender to the one who promises to guide your every step. This transformation does not mean the waters will cease to be present, but it does mean that you no longer face them alone. God walks with you, turning what was meant for harm into a source of renewal and strength. As you embrace this divine cleansing, you find yourself lighter, freer to walk in God's presence, to lean into His promises, and to trust in His unfailing guidance. Let the waters remind you of who you are, beloved, redeemed, and chosen. Like Moses, you are called to rise from the depths, leaving behind the weight of fear and regret. With each step, trust that the currents of God's love and purpose are carrying you towards something far greater, a life of freedom, peace, and abiding hope. Moses' story is a powerful reminder that faith is not the absence of struggle but the willingness to press forward despite it. Even after witnessing the burning bush and hearing God's voice, Moses grappled with the weight of his calling. He doubted his ability to speak, feared Pharaoh's wrath, and grew frustrated with the stubbornness of the people he was tasked to lead. Yet, God's promise to Moses, "I will be with you," remained steadfast through every moment of doubt, anger, and fear. How comforting it is to know that God does not expect perfection from us. He meets us in our humanity, in the messy, raw, and unfiltered emotions we often try to hide. Moses' struggles did not disqualify him. Instead, they became the backdrop for God's grace to shine even brighter. In the same way, your struggles, your doubts, and even your resistance do not push God away. Instead, they draw Him nearer, for He is a God who walks with His people, even in the wilderness. Think about the challenges you are facing right now. Maybe it's the weight of decisions that feel too heavy, the sting of past failures that whisper, "You're not enough," or the fear of stepping into the unknown. In these moments, hear the words, "I will be with you." They are not just a promise, they are an anchor, a declaration that God's presence is your constant companion, your guide, and your strength. Faith is often forged in the fire of struggle, just as Moses discovered. It's in the wrestling, the questioning, and the moments of surrender that God molds us into vessels for His purposes. Let your doubts drive you not away from God but toward Him. When you feel unworthy or unready, remember that God's power is made perfect in weakness. He calls you not because you are flawless but because He is faithful. So, when the path feels uncertain, when fear and resistance rise within you, pause and listen for His voice. Let the promise, "I will be with you," echo in your heart. It is a lifeline, a reminder that you are never alone, and that even in your deepest struggles, God is working to bring about something extraordinary through you. Trust in His unwavering presence and step forward in faith, knowing that His strength will carry you where your own cannot. The burning bush is more than an extraordinary sight, it is a reminder that God's presence is unyielding, enduring, and transformative. The bush burns yet remains unconsumed, symbolizing a God who does not diminish or fade, no matter how fiercely He moves within our lives. This flame of divine presence cuts through the wilderness of Moses' life, igniting a purpose he had long abandoned. It stands as a beacon of hope, not just for Moses but for all who feel lost, unseen, or inadequate. In your own life, these burning bushes may not come as dramatic signs, but they are there, flickering moments of God's presence woven into the fabric of your daily experiences. They may appear in the quiet generosity of a friend who listens when you are weary, the beauty of a sunset that reminds you of the Creator's artistry, or the unexplainable peace that settles over you in prayer. These moments are whispers of the divine, small yet powerful reminders that you are never alone. Pause and reflect. Where have you seen these flickers of God's light recently? Perhaps it was in the laughter of a child, the gentle breeze that brushed against your face, or the courage to take one more step when you thought you couldn't. These are not coincidences, they are the burning bushes of your life, calling you to notice, to pause, and to draw near. Rehearse this truth: God is with me. Say it aloud or in your heart as you take each step forward. Let these words become a rhythm, a guiding light that illuminates your path even when the way ahead feels uncertain. The warmth of His presence is there, steadying you in the cold nights of fear or doubt. Just as the burning bush was not consumed, neither will His love for you be extinguished. Trust in this enduring flame, and let it lead you toward hope, purpose, and peace. As Moses stood before Pharaoh and led his people through the wilderness, it was not his own wisdom, strength, or eloquence that carried the mission forward. It was his faith in the God who promised, "I will be with you." Moses' journey is a profound example of what it means to live with trust in the unseen, a trust that does not rely on having all the answers or even understanding the next step. Instead, it is a trust rooted in the character and faithfulness of the one who calls us. What would it look like for you to embrace this kind of trust in your own life? Imagine stepping into challenges not with fear but with the quiet confidence that you are not walking alone. Perhaps it means taking a bold step toward a dream that feels out of reach, knowing that God's provision will meet you there. Maybe it looks like forgiving someone who has hurt you deeply, trusting that God's grace will fill the gaps of your pain. It could mean enduring a season of uncertainty, holding fast to the assurance that God is working all things for good, even when you cannot yet see how. Living with this trust doesn't mean the path will be easy or without obstacles. Moses' journey was fraught with trials, resistance from Pharaoh, complaints from his own people, and the vast, unyielding wilderness. But each step forward was sustained by the knowledge that God was with him, guiding, providing, and fulfilling His promises. In your life, this trust may begin with small acts of surrender, choosing faith over fear, obedience over hesitation, and hope over despair. It's a daily decision to anchor yourself in God's promises rather than your own abilities. With each step, you learn that His strength truly is sufficient, His timing perfect, and His presence unwavering. So, what does it look like for you to move forward, even when the path is unclear? It looks like resting in the arms of a God who says, "I will be with you." It means letting His promise steady your heart when doubts arise, knowing that your journey is not defined by your own strength but by His. Trust in Him, take the next step, and watch as He leads you into something far greater than you could imagine. As the meditation concludes, linger a little longer in the sacred stillness of God's presence. Let your heart settle in the truth of who He is, the great I Am. He is not bound by time or circumstance, unchanging in His goodness and unshaken by your doubts or fears. He is the Alpha and the Omega, the one who knows the end from the beginning and holds your life tenderly in His hands. In Him, you are more than the sum of your successes and failures. You are His beloved, chosen for a purpose far greater than you can see. Close your eyes and breathe deeply, allowing the rhythm of your breath to quiet your mind and center your soul. As you inhale, let trust fill the spaces where anxiety once lived. As you exhale, release the fears that weigh heavy on your heart. Whisper to yourself, "My God is with me," and feel the peace of His presence wash over you like a gentle tide. With each breath, you are reminded of the truth that anchors you: you are never alone. Moses' journey shows us that holiness is not confined to extraordinary moments, it is woven into the fabric of the everyday. God meets you in the middle of your mess, not waiting for perfection but bringing His light into your brokenness. In your doubts, He offers His steady promise. In your fear, He speaks words of courage. And in your weariness, He becomes your rest. I will be with you is not just a declaration, it is a covenant of love, a commitment from the Creator of the universe to walk beside you every step of the way. Let this truth infuse your life with courage to face what lies ahead, peace to rest when the journey feels long, and faith to trust that you are being guided by the one who never falters. May you carry these words with you, not just today but in every season of your life. I will be with you. They are your assurance in the storm, your light in the darkness, and your song in the wilderness. With this promise, live boldly, rest deeply, and walk forward in unwavering faith, knowing that the great I Am is always, always with you.